What is up, all you GBA D-League type people? This is Tom, and we're here to bring you guys Week 1, the Power Rankings for the D-League. Like I said, with me as always.
What's up, guys? Aster back with you for Week 1 of the Power Rankings. This time we actually have some games that we can work with. So we're going to hop right into it. We're going to start off with my number 11, your number 12, the Toronto Leaf Storms. We got OP Jellicent coming in this week, and looking at this matchup right off the bat, we can see some problems that were mentioned from the draft analysis back in Week 0 last week. He has a huge speed problem that I kept bringing up, and we can see it very prevalent here. Raikou, Latios, absolutely nothing to outspeed them. He's forced into bringing a Trick Room Hoopa, which evidently is completely hard-walled by CJ's Klefki, which he masterfully created. That set was amazing. OP just had absolutely nothing to put on pressure on CJ's team. There was even a Terrakion that never hit the field. The sets that he brought were really not tailored to deal with CJ's builds that he could bring. So that's already we're seeing a little bit of an issue with his team.
Yeah, overall it looked like his team was roughly hard stopped by keys, even from team preview. The Manaphy having no water stab was absolutely asinine, and the Hoopa set was hard checked by keys. The one props that I will give him is the fact that he did make really nice doubles to kind of stay on top of potentially poor matchups or to kind of get one over on CJ, and that was good up until, you know, he blew it and basically showed off counter on Registeel and completely blew his load a little bit too early. So in essence, the set as a whole was useless, showing CJ exactly, you know, what he was, being an Akka set that CJ also kind of snuffed out before even considering clicking Fire move. Overall, like he then continued to play a little bit more misplays, tried to get initiative with Landorus going for a U-turn against Raikou as it HP iced. So Landorus almost died, it U-turned out when it could have just earthquaked and knocked out Raikou right there. And that would have helped him a lot in long term, maybe not allowed him to win, but at least mitigate differential. So overall, his team just kind of fed the keys after he pretty much threw away Landorus and Registeel for that matter. And not only that, but once the Trick Room was set up from Hoopa, CJ's keys were just perfectly, you know, built in order to build most of his team. You know, Manaphy couldn't touch it, Hoopa couldn't touch it, the two checks to it were dead, and it just ate. It's kind of sad that he got beat by a key ring, so do better.
Yeah, very unfortunate. I think Klefki is now the kill leader. We'll see how long that lasts. Moving on to my number 12, your number 11, we have the New York Empoleon Goldoa Dragon. Goldoa, in this matchup, I feel the big turning point for him was losing Venusaur very early on. Mega Venu just went down to that Z bounce. Now, obviously, it is a Go-Goat. Not everybody's very familiar with what Go-Goat has as coverage. I did say this, that it has some really good stuff going for it, and you gotta watch out for it. And obviously, he didn't hear my warning. Venusaur was a very key component to his team. You look at Zazo's team, Garchomp, Zapdos, Slowbro, the Diancie, Crocodile, and even Go-Goat itself, once the Z-move was gone, none of them could deal with Mega Venusaur properly, so that was going to be a very big issue for Zazo had he not been able to deal with it very early on. So I feel like Goldoa really messed up losing his Venusaur that early. He had other checks to the Go-Goat that he could have gone into. He had things like Victini, even Tornadus. I know Toxic is always an option. It's definitely something that he could have been carrying on the Go-Goat, but I feel like that, rather than losing Venusaur that early, would have definitely been the play.
So here's the thing. When you watch the beginning of Goldoa's video, he does show that he and Zazo tried to recreate the video, or at least the battle, many times. And I asked myself, does that affect his mojo? Does that affect his mindset? I asked that before the match even started, and then about halfway through, when he says it did affect him, it was confirmed. He sounded deflated in his commentary. You know, anyone hates constant DCs or even recreates. I know. Maybe Aster, you haven't been affected by those.
Nope.
You lucky bastard.
Yep.
But he also did sound distracted, deflated, and a bit, you know, all of his, like, his confidence was just, like, gone. You know, like wind out of his sails. So here's the thing. He didn't play well. As a matter of fact, he played pretty badly. He wasn't thinking, or he was overthinking. He was put in a bad position really early, like you said, about losing Mega Venusaur. He was in a bad mindset, on tilt, and he really didn't make any mid-ground plays. There were options he could have made offensively or defensively, and just chose not to. Went for a very all-or-nothing mindset. Either he's going to get ahead, or he's absolutely going to do nothing. And the prime example of that was wasting the Z move. Awful play when Zazo still had two checks to the Corkscrew Crasher. basically blowing out any of his offense that he possibly could have had with that Thunderous. U-turn, even Tailwind would have been a much better play there. And basically, the bottom line is this. He needs to learn a few things. How to utilize his offense a little bit better, how to utilize his Z-Mons a little bit better, how to, get up rocks, and even to pick out what his opponent's, issues were. In this case, not having really a fairy checks on Zazo's team that he brought, even though his team did have a Blissey in the bat, that in team building. If he doesn't improve, he's never gonna get out of the basement, and this is where he's gonna stay. So improve.
So yeah, Tom did mean Tornadus and not Thunderous, by the way, guys. For those of you who are currently commenting down below, you can stop while you're ahead.
The attack is going.
Anyway, so yeah, that's it for Goldo. We want to see more from him. It's just the first week, so obviously it's not a good week to be getting tilted, but he definitely has room for improvement, so hopefully he shows that from here on out. Moving into our number 10s, we both have the same, the Calgary Infernapes. This is Aaron 2420, and this team specifically, I just feel like Aaron really didn't have anything for this matchup to begin with. Megalopony is a big problem, and it really destroyed his team. And on top of that, he really showed his hand early on with bringing Bronzong, Sylveon, Hariyama. Those three specifically really gave the team a feel of Trick Room, and we saw from Randy's commentary that he was prepped for it. And there wasn't much that Aaron could do. He tried to abuse his offense while it was in. He wasn't able to get momentum. He was really kind of just stuck where he was every single turn. Even the Mega Kang, the way that it went down, the way that it got chipped away at, was just it was kind of sad to see. There was nothing that he could generate offensively. So
yeah, the thing with Aaron is that when you compared his team to Randy's, his offense was almost entirely just outclassed, right? So just follow me along real quick. Aaron had Mega Kangaskhan, whereas Randy had Megalopony. Megalopony wins that every time, right? Then Aaron had Z Thunderous, but Randy had Mamoswine. Mamoswine, technically in the back, could, of course, revenge or do big damage to something like Thunderous, especially if rocks are up. So, in essence, his team was almost completely outclassed from the get-go, and he had to heavily rely on Scarf Hydreigon without even being, secretive. Just had to, from the get-go, I have to show that this is here in order to check Megalopony's speed tier, and really didn't have any choice to do anything but be as upfront as possible in order to beat Randy, which is exactly what Randy wanted, played into his hand, and he lost for it, right? While Hariyama was a big threat, and while he could have set up Trick Room, it's not a viable option. As a matter of fact, this whole team as a whole, Aaron's team that is, reminds me a lot of Chase's team, where it was very anemic offensively. Okay, it looks cool, he has really big threats, but they're manageable. They can be taken down, whether it's good defense or good prep, and the team is overall pressured by his opponent's offense and his opponent's hazards, and if that's going to be the case for this season, he's not going to keep up. That's just the bottom line. So Aaron does need to improve in that matter if he's going to improve moving forward. So next up, we're probably going to go into the biggest landslide this week, and you guys are going to see that right now on screen. Greg took a tumble, dude. It's kind of amazing. His team was legitimately pressured, from the get-go. Dual stab, HP Grass, Rotom from Melantoss actually got him. He made the switch into Toad and kind of got bopped for it. Not only that, but almost the entire time from turn 1, he was playing 50-50 games. Either do I go into this and potentially take big damage, or do I stay in thinking he's going to click a super effective or really hard-hitting move from Melantosh's offense. Don't get me wrong, Melon did have a very good team, but Greg could have not gotten so much into his head. And I say that because there's one situation specifically, and this was super early. Greg said that in his mocks, he saw Dragon Pulse, Fire Move, Solar Beam, and then Roost, Megazard Y. And because he saw that in his mocks, and this is one of the downfalls of mocks, as we saw from Turbo's video and then Leo's video, right?
Yep.
You see that in your mocks, and then you act on that in the actual battle without scouting or kind of removing that notion from your brain. That's what happens. You lose your Coco to a fire move in the sun from a Zard Y. That's what happens. And basically it deflated the entire match from there. Greg was forced to play more and more aggressively to the point where it kind of screwed him, whether it was the double from the Lax that had a curse up, went for Fire Punch into Mega Scissor, that died. The HP Grass from from the Rotom that hit his Seismitoad super effectively. All in all, he was just pressured the entire time. And it's not even that Melon beat him, because Melon did, misplay, as we'll talk about in a little while, but he had the offense, he had the mindset to beat him, but he just didn't. He lost to things like over predictions, and overall he beat himself. He let the match gradually slip away from him to the point where he just had no shot. And if this is Greg, like, you were so highly sought after, and then, like, this tumble, just pick yourself up, man. You gotta move forward.
Honestly, though, for me, the big problem is that Greg... I feel like his big issue was in prep, not in play. His play wasn't too bad. He still played around things as well as he could. Seismitoad as a switch into Rotom Wash is not unheard of. Then you have the Coco coming out on a potential Dragon Pulse. It's hard to scout around Charizard Y. I understand that. It's an incredible breaker, and without Rocks up, you have a very, very tough time dealing with it in general. Where I feel that Greg lacked really was his prep. There are certain sets that I was looking into for this match, especially having been one of the people that mocked Melon, that I really felt that Greg could have brought, and I was even there in certain discussions with him. He easily could have brought Lycanroc Knight. That thing put in so much work against Melon once the Zygarde was dealt with. Nothing else could take it on. It gets access to Sucker Punch and Z Stone Edge. Like, it's an absolute threat. It's Swords Dance, and it's actually decently fast. And then you look at what he brought instead, being the Gliscor, of course, as his setup sweeper. And while that did look like a decent win con, it was taken on 1v1 by something that shouldn't take it on, 1v1 being the Snorlax. And then there was the Mew that was the issue with the Ice Punch. And then you have the Latias, and this one's the big one that really kind of gets to me. And I think Greg is going to agree with me. Calm Mind Lati just did so well here, like really well. You look at Melon's team and he had absolutely nothing for it. Nothing could take on Calm Mind, Roost, Lati. Everything would have died. It comes in on Zard, sets up a Calm Mind, heals up if it decides to go for a Dragon Pulse, which doesn't kill from the range after Flamethrower if it EV'd correctly, and then it just goes in with Psychic and Dragon Pulse, and there's nothing that Melon could do. So that's where I feel that Greg really lacked this week, was his prep. I feel like nothing had the correct set on it to be able to really take advantage of Melon's team, but we'll talk more about Melon's side when we get to him a little bit later. But yeah, he's a huge nosedive for me this week. He was up at the top because of his team in general, but we're going to see if he fluctuates from here, if he stays down near the bottom. I'm assuming Greg's going to be able to move back up based on the kind of player he is. But anyway, moving on, we have at number 8 for me and number 7 for you, we have the Phoenix Midnight. So didn't move too much for me. He also really climbed up for you. He moved up from number 11 to number 7 on your list. You want to explain that?
Well, yeah, he outplayed Deebs, but he was just outlasted by Deebs. Frankly, on matchup, he should have lost like 5 or 6-0. That's the bottom line. But Deebs let him slip away with so many opportunities to stay in the match. As a matter of fact, like, you look at how Turbo played from the get-go. He played aggressively to stay in control, and in positive situations where Deebs was, in his live comm, was saying, oh, I didn't expect this. Now, we're not talking about Deebs just yet. As a matter of fact, we will extremely soon. But in a what looked like poor matchup for Turbo, he almost came out with a win had he not clicked Wild Charge with the Emboar and instead clicked Flare Blitz, because his reasoning was on point. Deebs' wasn't. You look at Turbo's team, and he did a really good job maintaining momentum and pressure in a matchup that otherwise should have gotten crushed had he not been the good player that we kind of expected he was. Like I said, the one turn that defined him was clicking Wild Charge with Emboar. You know, it pretty much put Turbo in a non-winning situation. Like later on, you know, if he got the damage off on Lando, not the Theorymon, got the damage off on Lando, you know, the Scarf Persian with the foul play could have won later on, assuming he got the necessary damage off on Lando and then everything else. So, you know, shoutouts to Z-Surf actually doing something. The Raichu was cool to see kill the
Nihilego.
There it is. And that was cool, you know, and I just think that Turbo outplayed Deebs, but the issue was Deebs outlasted Turbo. And you don't want to outlast your opponents, and you don't want to squeak by a nice little cute W, a 2-0-W, when you should have won more, and you should have dominated him your first week. Not squeaked by because you were overwhelmed and you didn't really understand half the things that Turbo brought. That's the difference. At
the end of the day, a win is a win, a loss is a loss, and
yeah, I guess
a loss for Turbo is a loss, and he does take it. But you did say correctly that Turbo actually almost pulled it out there at the end with Scarf foul play, Alolan Persian, which was interesting. That was cool. I was actually
worked.
I was kind of caught off guard by that, despite the fact that I mocked Turbo, and I believe I saw that set. So he made some really good adjustments to his team, and you are correct. I feel like the one big turning point in this match was not getting any damage off on Lando with the M board the turn that he went for Wild Charge. I disagree. I feel like Turbo should have clicked Flare Blitz regardless, because Finny was easier to wear down for him, looking at what he had on the team.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
So I don't think that the Finny switch-in should have affected which move he clicked in general. If you wanted to make a mid-round play, you could have gone for Superpower. I don't even know if he had Superpower on the set, but Flare Blitz was the play. I 100% agree. Obviously, Zard can come in, but then you still have your Scarf Persian, so that for me, I don't really understand all of Turbo's movements in the game. They're kind of unclear to me, but yeah, we'll get to Deebs when we get to him, but unfortunately Turbo takes a loss. We know that he's got transactions that just occurred. Actually, I believe the transaction video is already up, so you guys can go and check that one out. Those out, I believe he transacted 2 Pokemon, and his team looks a little bit better now, so definitely go and see that.
I do like Bulu, even though he's gonna get shit for it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love Bulu. Azamon in general, and I think he's got the team to support it as well, so I agree with his decision. But yeah, that's it for the Phoenix Midnight. You want to take us into our number, I don't know which one you want to do next.
This is, so my number 8 and number 7, the LA Nidokings. Now, yep. Danza had his work cut out, right? But if you ask me, this was probably one of the best marquee matches of the week. Not the best match, but the best marquee. We have a former GBA champion against the D-League champion, which I think on paper should have been a pretty good match. And to an extent it was, right? Danza could have taken better offensive initiative to get into Mega Gallade versus the Nidoqueen, trying to set up rocks rather than trying to keep rocks away with the Silvally bug. What kind of bothered me though was that while he could have kept Silvally out to stay out of rocks range, after seeing how much the surf damage was doing and then how much the sludge wave damage was doing to him, he still stayed in and basically fought a losing battle. Granted, he kept rocks off the field. Fine. He got Nidoqueen down to low HP. Fine. But it just seemed... it was bizarre to me, that's all, because it just didn't seem like it got anywhere until later in the game where rocks weren't up, but still, it was just, it almost felt like it was an uphill battle for him from the beginning. I remember why I don't like running Hurricane, that happened, and then the bottom line was just he was just put into an impossible situation late where either he had to burn the Z move on Torn against the Rotom or the Magearna. But the thing was that whether he decided for one or the other, the one that didn't die beat the Tornadus. And even him staying in with the Mega Gallade against the Magearna, which was, actually the Zoroark, also an impossible situation because he couldn't knock it out even at where he was.
Yeah, Danza, we're already seeing some of the problems that I mentioned. I didn't bring a rocker, so right there, he's losing out on chip damage on very important things like the Cresselia for +2 Gallade, like the Zoroark, so you can see which Pokemon it is when it comes in, because Magearna takes 6, whereas Zoroark takes 12. Certain situations like this where I feel like Danza's really going to struggle this season. Now, the way he played, he didn't play badly at all. I think that he really did perform up to par, I would say, especially when going up against somebody of Leo's caliber. Getting caught off guard by sub Mega Medicham, that I'm not sure about. I think that at that point, if you're going to end up sacking your Toxapex anyway, I think sacking your Tangrowth is better in that situation, because Pex can take on Magearna, it can take on Rotom to a certain extent, whereas Tangrowth cannot. So I think that just attacking what's in front of you, attacking the Medicham in front of you would have been the better play. Letting the Tangrowth go down, then going into Torn and taking care of it that way. Obviously, the Hurricane ended up missing, but Leo did miss a Thunder Wave at some point with his Cresselia on the Mega Gallade as well, which put him in a terrible situation where he had to reveal Zoroark early on. So... a lot of hacks both ways. I think that Danza misplayed a little bit with his Tangrowth, definitely on the turn where Medicham went for sub. Other than that, I don't think he did anything too bad. Silvally Bug was a good call on his end. The Arcanine, maybe the speed could have been a little bit better, because I believe that it can outspeed Rotom, and I think that's what he should have done with it, as a result of having that Tangrowth to come in and take hits from the Mega Medicham. So that's all I really have to say. I think his team prep was good, but the fact that he has nothing on this squad that he had to bring that had rocks, which didn't help him at all, is going to be a big issue for him, obviously, this week and going into further weeks. So hopefully he'll be able to fix that up real quick.
We're gonna go. I'm gonna bitch about the Calgary Flame Wheels at number 6 and your number 5.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, right? Deebs' team of Zardex, Lando, Neoligo, and Superior applied immense pressure to Turbo's team. But Deebs played himself throughout the entire matchup. He was rattled from the get-go at things he didn't expect Turbo to bring, being the Scarf Persian and the Z Raichu and even the Emboar, which we happened to find out 2 of those things did a really good job, and one of them actually ended up winning the game for the Calgary Flame Wheels. But in an almost unwinnable matchup for Turbo, Turbo still pulled out a 2-0 loss against a team that, or against a coach, I should say, that was rattled and even made suspect plays at times, right? You want to talk about a difference of pretty much just like confidence and perspective. Turbo played to a level that he needed to. Deebs played down and almost lost because of it. One move, Flare Blitz or Wild Charge, is pretty much what won Deebs the match. He didn't beat Turbo per se, he just outlasted him. And in this league, you can't outlast the opponents that are here because come playoffs, you either make it or you'll be the one that's outlasted in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, exactly. For me, Deebs, I watched his side, and he seemed very unsure of himself, like from play to play, which kind of scares me. I really hope that doesn't persist. He didn't know what kind of plays that Turbo could make. He was confused about the team structure from the get-go. Just clicked Flare Blitz turn 1 when it was very clear that Jirachi wasn't staying in. So I don't know. It's especially from his commentary. Like if I were to just watch Turbo's side, to me it would make total sense as far as Deebs' plays wanting to stay safe. But hearing Deebs' commentary, especially live, I was very I'm scared. I'm scared about where this is going to go for him and how he's going to be able to perform from here on. He did pick up the win, so good for him, honestly. But like you said, it should have been a much more convincing victory. Convincing in the sense of differential and as well as the way that he spoke about the matchup throughout it. So that's something that we're gonna have to watch out for moving forward. Let's see if Deebs can really readjust himself and gain some confidence, I would say, moving on into the rest of the season. But that's it for the Calgary Flame Wheels, excuse me. We have 2 Calgary teams, so sometimes get them confused. Moving on, we have the Baltimore O'Reillys, who we touched upon a little bit earlier when we talked about the Toronto Leaf Storms. So I'm going to get us started on that. We have Choice CJ here. Brought a great team, honestly, to this match. I think that even his sack play early on the Drapion was really, really solid because he identified what he needed for this matchup, and Drapion was clearly something that wasn't necessary, although it could put in a little bit of work. It didn't need to. He had the elements and the team structure to be able to take down the Toronto Leaf Storms, and he showed that. He showed us an amazing Klefki set, which was designed to outspeed Hoopa Unbound under Trick Room, and really just recycle plus the 50% berry just kept it alive and kept it going. It got 4 kills for him, which was absolutely incredible. He played with the Latios perfectly, making sure to just force in the Florges whenever he could, give himself free switch-ins into his Darmanitan, into his Keys, really start putting on the pressure with those 2. So I think he did a really good job this game.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. Keys went in after, OP threw away his Registeel and Landorus, and then Klefki basically 1v1'd almost 4 Mons. When the hell do you ever say that? Like, when... I'm pretty sure that's the only time I'll ever see that. And, hats off to CJ. It's a nice win early in the match. He did a really nice job scouting for Scarf versus non-Scarf Lando. The Berry Registeel basically blowing out that set. And what type of bulk that Manaphy had. It was a very solid game. And, get hashtag unlocked, bitch. So next up, at both our number 4s, pretty much these last 4 are going to be relatively the same. We have the Exeter Chief Electivires, coached by Melantosh. Now, I was genuinely surprised that Defensive Victory Bell actually worked for the possibility of Muck, Gliscor, and Coco. Did not see that coming, and for it being some really nice tech, seeing it work, I like the type of innovation, especially with Tier 5 Mons in this meta. You don't often get to see, I guess, innovation anymore with certain Mons. It seems like at this point in draft, things have kind of been, they've been mined, they've been figured out, all this like cheeky moves have been seen before in one way or another, but having seen a Victory Bell, like 1v1 a few things with Strength Sap and stuff, it was really, really cool. But besides that, Melantosh did make some nice plays. He knocked out the Coco with the Flamethrower. That was more Greg's doing. The HP Grass to the Rotom, and even the Toxic to the Latias from Zard Y, all of which were really nice. But, even though he had the offense to beat Greg, he still beat himself, and almost to a point, slipped this game away. Watch the timer, dude. What are you doing? You took so long to express yourself. You took so long to explain what you're going to do. I watched there and went 5, 4, 3, 2, and then Rotom could have knocked out Gliscor with a Hydro, or it could have gotten rid of Rocks, both of which are beneficial to you, but no, clicks Full Twitch, because you timered out. Watch that, dude. Like, little things like that is what costs you matches, and I really genuinely hope that is not the case as you move forward. Your first 3 weeks suck for you, and you're gonna let stuff like that almost lose you a game. If I'm being honest, the DC actually maybe sort of helped him, because after that timeout, when they went to Showdown, he had a lot more time to make his moves, which did help him. But if it was a situation on Wi-Fi, he didn't have that time, so his thinking was rushed a little bit. Moving forward, he can't rely on timeouts and going to Showdown like that. He needs to tighten this up. He needs to not get bailed out by Showdown or by little things in order to allow him to win against people like Randy or Zazo or Leo or even Danza or even Turbo. I mean, we're talking about coaches that are going to take these little things that you mess up on and bury you for them. Pick it up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something he's going to have to watch out for moving forward. It's a good thing that it's week 1. Absolutely, because otherwise this happening later on into the season, crucial games, could be a big deal. On top of that, he won this game, so thankfully it didn't cost him, and he should be able to make the adjustment from here on out. I don't know if Melon has prior Wi-Fi experience, but I know that that's something that almost caught me at some point. I think it did catch me at some point. I got timered on a move. Yeah, I believe so. It was either the D-League or this most recent season of the GBA. I got caught by it, and it had never happened before, so I'm gonna really pay attention to that. So I don't blame him for it. It's fine, whatever. He'll get used to it. But I really liked Melon's team. I think that he was super well prepped for this game. I put in a lot of effort into the mock that I gave him, and I actually ended up winning that mock. And he made some serious adjustments to his team, like very, very small things that allowed him to come out with the win here. His Snorlax was an excellent set. Catching the Scizor with the Fire Punch was unintentional, but amazing. That was cool. That was just such a good turn for him, and also catching the Seismitoad with the HP Grass, super good. The Coco coming in on the Flamethrower from the Charizard. Now that's one thing that I will give him a little bit of crap for, because Latias could have ended up being a huge threat to him, and I showed him that set, and it's ultimately the set that ended up beating him in our mock. So I want him to be a little more vigilant of things like that. If Greg hadn't gone out of his way to scout for the Dragon Pulse, then I think Melon might have had a little bit of a harder time in this game, because Coco was something that can continuously pivot in and get in the Gliscor for him, which was ultimately a super big threat to Melon's team. So I want him to be careful there, but I still think that he played this game great. He did with his setup sweepers what he needed to do, and he came out with the victory. So can't say too much more.
That's true.
Moving on, we have both our number 3s. We have the Texas Rangers coming back from a great season, last season of course, and just showing us why they just did so great, and why Randy came out and really surprised us as somebody who was not really talked about, not really known in the community yet. And Randy just has such good control over his game now, kind of like Deebs a little bit. I would like to see Randy maybe calc during his games, because he obviously does his live comms, but there were a lot of instances where he's like, this should kill, right? This is gonna kill. Yeah, this will kill. And sometimes they really scared me, like when it was Lopunny versus Sylveon, he just clicked Frustration without calcing anything, and there was a roll where Sylveon could have definitely lived that. So I want him to be a little bit more careful with things like that, but ultimately I think he brought the correct team. He did a great job with Mega Lopunny, probably better than I will ever do in my entire life, and he really played his team to a T. He even used Barbaracle the way that he needed to this game. He didn't necessarily need to Shell Smash up with it. It was kind of just a one-time hit sort of thing with it. So really great job.
Ooh, but I really wanted him to Shell Smash. That would have been so cool. Yeah, like you said, Randy's offense, it outclassed Aaron's. Megalop beat Mega Kang, Mamo beat Thundy, and Scarfed Hydreigon was extremely limited. And it was really cool seeing Yuxi act like a nice glue that kind of held together all of Randy's offensive threats. Now, as I said in the draft PRs, his team has the capability, unlike pretty much any other, to highlight any of his offensive mons on his roster to pretty much declare it a win con, and then highlight it as such. So that was really cool, and you really did see that against Aaron, where either it was Mamo, Celesteela, or Megalopony that just went in and applied nasty pressure to Aaron's team, and eventually won it for him. But this was a very straightforward match. Aaron saw how his team got pretty much compromised, and, Randy didn't use any cute shit like Cosmic Power Megalopony to try and win this match.
Hey.
Isn't Isn't that right, Esther?
Hey, leave me alone, okay?
I can't. You ran the set, man.
It was an okay set. It just wasn't the best.
Okay. So finally, at our number 2, and for number 1 respectively, we're going to talk about Leo first, his Durham Druddigons, myself at number 2, and Aster at number 1. I wasn't quite convinced that Leo was going to pull this out like early in the match, because it seemed like the T-Wave miss really rattled him. I didn't want that to be what lost him the match, but when he was able to go ahead and trick Danza and show that his Magearna was in fact Zoroark and ended up knocking out the Gallade, he really did start to recover from there, and he pretty much took Danza's team down one thread at a time. He took it like one turn, one idea at a time, and worked through the rattledness, right? Now, it's something that I can say that a few other teams can't this week. People like Deebs almost let it take him. People like Goldoa and even Greg to an extent also can't say that. But he took down a team that without getting rocks up, which is pretty much his bread and butter. Wouldn't you say that, Aster?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he even called the Protect tech on the Tangrowth, which I guess also, like I said before, it's not really new at this point, but it was cool to see his Recover subset actually work with the Mega Medicham. So, I like the reasoning why he ran Cycle Cut over Zen Headbutt to avoid Baneful Bunker behind the sub. And even seeing Rotom Fridge, showing how much of a big threat it is as a Z user. Definitely cool to see that with, Papa C using Rotom Fridge last season. And I never really thought that I'd say that Rotom Fridge applied pressure to a team. Well, I guess I've been wrong before.
It makes a big difference when it doesn't have to deal with rocks when coming in.
That's true.
So I think he brought it to the right matchup, seeing as Danza has the worst rockers of life. But what you said, absolutely. Leo is a super smart player. He knows exactly what he needs to do to get into a winning position in a game. He had an initial plan for the Gallade. Thunderwave it. That'll deal with it. It'll be done with. It'll be slower than my Magearna. I can just hit it with a Fairy move. Should that fail, if it's a Swords Dance set, he has a Scarf Zoroark with Foul Play. So I like how he was able to really deal with Danza's biggest threats at all times. Letting the Nidoqueen get low, letting the Cresselia get as low as it did, could have been a big deal in the long run if the Tornadus had come in more often, if it was a little more present in this game, if it didn't have to deal with, well, it didn't have to deal with rocks, but if it didn't have to deal with a Medicham behind a sub, for example, or a Rotom behind a sub. Leo just decided to bring a sub on everything, it seems. But yeah, Leo absolutely dominated this game. When you see
Sub
a
on
Tangrowth...
everything!
Sorry?
Sub on everything!
Yeah. When you see a Tangrowth come in on your high jump kick and it takes over 50%, and you see leftovers, you already know Protect is coming out. So regardless of whether he had sub or not, high jump kick again was not the play. So this is why I say that Leo's an extremely smart player. He knows what he's doing. He's been in these sort of pressure situations when things don't go right for him necessarily before, and he's been able to really bounce back and make the correct plays. And like even against me in semifinals of last season, he was super pressured by a banded Greninja. Sorry, not a banded Greninja, a banded Infernape, and he still managed to pull it out by obviously dodging the Gunk Shot, but he didn't give up. He still brought it to the end. He still played correctly to put himself in a winning position should the Gunk Shot miss. So this is why I say Leo for me has to be number one, and I can't put Zazo above him just yet, but we'll see. Now let's talk about Zazo. You want to start it off because you have him at number one.
I do. Zazo, Lord Daddy himself. I don't have much to say. Like, he just played really well. He played extremely straightforward, extremely well, and as expected, never really let his opponent do anything and dictate the pace of the match from the get-go. He took advantage of the fact that Goldoa had one ground immunity, and by bringing Crook plus Garchomp, both of which had means of hitting, if not knocking out, the Tornadus, which then allowed one, the other, or both to then just go in on his opponent's team. Something I never thought I'd say. There's 3 things I've said this week. Rotom Fridge doing well, Keys doing well, 4 things. Defensive Victory Bell being a thing, and now Go-Goat bouncing up and fisting a Mega Venusaur into the ground. That was cool.
Hell yeah.
Zaza wasn't kidding when he said that thing was the GOAT, and I hope it does more for the rest of the season, that he really does keep showing off that little graphic of his face on the Go-Goat. So
I hope
that's
so
why
too.
it's my number one.
Yeah, for sure. No, he did a great job at really scouting whatever Goldoa wanted to do. He played the game correctly. He made it so that his Crook could take any hit. He said at the beginning, any hit from the Gigalith turn 1, saw that it was banded, and really played in consequence from there. Was able to catch the Mega Venusaur, which was a big problem for his team, able to deal with it. I would have liked to see a little bit more of an offensive Zapdos, potentially, for if he was able to get the Venusaur lower, rather than just killing it, so that would have been nice, but I understand his sets, I understand his entire prep, everything really makes sense here. Zazo, more than anybody else, I feel, felt in control of the game. Even though he has a post-com, I really felt like he knew what he was doing, and he never panicked, not once. He's a great player, and we're going to see more of this season. Hopefully he can bring this semi-stall team to a winning record and show us what else he's got up his sleeve, because Z-Bounce Go-Go, now that is the GOAT right there. So that's it, guys. That's going to wrap up our week 1 for power rankings. We're going to see a lot of shifts in the early weeks. Obviously, people coming out with 1-1 records, 2-0s, and 0-2s next week, so you're going to see a lot of movement, but this is where we got everybody for right now.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, leave your rankings and your feedback down in the comment section below. Let us know if we missed anything or if it's anything you guys want to add. Love hearing your feedback. And we look forward to week 2. Hopefully a few more upsets and hopefully some really great matches. And like I said, just some of the coaches need to pick it up and tighten it up, and we'll see what happens from here.
All right, well, catch you later, guys.
Later, guys.